Everyone's been talking about this Belal Muhammad and Ariel Helwani feud, which took place this past week. It's all over social media. And in today's video, I'm going to give my take on who I think is in the right here. My name is James Lynch. So before we get into everything, I just want to set this up a little bit. Ariel Helwani and I wouldn't say we're friends. Like, I've met him before. He's always been cool with me. He's referenced a few of my interviews on his show. Like, I don't really have a problem with him. I think there's some things that Ariel does that I don't agree with. But I think overall, he's fine. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hate. And I'd say I'm actually better friends with Belal Muhammad. I've actually interviewed Belal for quite some time. I was probably one of the first people to actually interview him. Look at this interview here from April of 2016. I interviewed him a number of times since then. And obviously right now can't interview him, but I got no issues with Belal either. So Belal Out of Nowhere, if you haven't seen it, has this show with Jason Anik. Remember the show? And Curtis Calhoun, grabbing this clip. It would be great, Curtis, next time if you're watching this to put the full interview in there. Not a fan of just grabbing the clip. But Belal calling Ariel Helwani a hater in response to his win over Leon Edwards. Going to watch the clip here real quick, and then Ariel responds to this, and I'll give sort of my take on that after.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ariel Helwani is one of the biggest haters in the world, right? He's not. He knows what he's doing when he tries to bring these questions to fighters, and he tries to get you to hate on him. And he's been wanting to get people to make excuses for why Leon lost his fight. Even Leon's missing, right? He hasn't gone on the show, but he's looking for that. So you're going to ask the guy that won by knockout on that card, like a moron, hey, the time change was a difference for him. So that would mean it was a time change was a difference for Razor Blades too. Maybe that affected Razor Blades. Aspinall was from there. Aspinall won by knockout, you moron. Paddy Pimblett won by knockout, you moron. And, what's his face? Leon Edwards, he hired the sleeping coach from NASCAR. But Ariel is just a pure hater. He's been hating on me this is my career. He's another one of the guys that for sure had tears in his eyes when he saw me carry that belt. He had tears in his eyes when he saw Leon Edwards lose that fight. I didn't have to go through get the belt by coming on his stupid podcast and, bowing down to him and, hoping that he would say my name for a title shot. I went the hard way. I went the long way. I got it myself. I didn't need nobody's hand. I didn't need I didn't put your hand out for nothing. I got it myself. So for him to keep hating like that, that just shows the type of person he is. He's a clown. So respect to Aspinall. Aspinall's the man. And he said it the way it was.
Bingo.
I dominated him. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It wasn't just I went in there.
That's pretty much it. So you can understand a lot of frustration towards Ariel Helwani. Helwani does respond on Twitter, and he has this. And then there's some other stuff he says, but I'll talk about that a bit after. I only hear one dude throwing a lot of insults and hating. I've never done that, even though Belal always claims otherwise. Same old, same old. The interview in question yesterday with Aspinall was my first with guests since a week before the Manchester card. So the notion that I've been asking everyone to hate on Belal is factually incorrect. Literally, I haven't talked to anyone for 3 months. Also, I've also not asked to speak with Leon since the fight. I've only had 2 shows. As I predicted, I said one critical thing. I think Leon was off that night due to the time difference, but not every human is the same, while also giving Belal props. And before and after the fight, again, this is all insulting. I said repeatedly he was getting screwed by not getting the title shot. In short, good to be back. Peace and love. So, and let me just say something here. People always say Ariel's crying or he's whining. Like, I am in the same belief here. If someone says something about you publicly, you should be allowed to respond. All these new fans, all these people say that, anytime you respond to anything, like you're just supposed to ignore it according to them. But if you respond, you're crying. That's not what he's doing here. I think this is good. I'm the exact same way. Someone says something bad about me, I want to have the right to go and speak my mind and use my platform to do so. So Ariel responds here. And, he basically outlines it here, just mentioning that, look, like all he said was that Leon had an off night. So this is a big debate. And this is something I've even talked about in my Discord. I think 2 things can be true at once. I think you can say that someone had an off night while also giving props to the person who won that fight. Like, are we just not supposed to talk about things that happen in a fight because we're worried about what the other person thinks? Like, I don't think that's true. I think Ariel saying Leon had an off night can be interpreted a bunch of different ways, but I've even had some people in my chat talk about, oh, well, this, there's people who think that by Ariel saying that, Leon should have won the fight. No, I don't think he's saying that. I think he's just pointing out, like, Leon hasn't looked like that in other fights. Maybe the second Usman fight where he was losing and got the kick at the end, maybe you could argue that because, that was a pretty dominant, couple rounds for Usman prior to that. But I don't think it's a terrible analysis. Now, would it have been great for Ariel to go out and say more about Belal when he's mentioning the Leon off night thing? Yes. In a perfect world, that would have been good for him to say. But I also don't think he's deserved the label of hater here by just simply saying that Leon had an off night. That doesn't imply anything. Like what he's saying here, a hater would be him saying, Leon had an off night, and if it was at the normal time, he would have definitely won that fight. That's being a hater. That's being extremely biased. But that's not what he said. He just gave a very vague critique mentioning that Leon was off that night. So listen, again, I like Belal. I understand Belal's frustration. I mean, the amount of people who were calling him boring and picked against him in the Leon Edwards fight. I can understand him being pissed off, but I just think this is directed at the wrong person. Like, I don't think what Ariel said was super hater-like, and I think it was just like a mild observation from the fight. Like, I don't think he said otherwise. So, again, like, I understand Belal's frustration, but I don't think Ariel was in the wrong here. So Ariel then goes on and mentions some other things that happened. Example 1 of 1,000, me giving Belal praise over the last few months, but of course he throws a temper tantrum. Like this, I don't think he throws a temper tantrum. That's not really necessary. All Ariel could say is like, look, here's an example of me giving him props. I understand Ariel's also upset because you have someone accusing you of being something that you're not. Like, he's calling him a hater. Like, Ariel didn't hate. He's just, like I said, making an observation of the fight. I would like it if he didn't use this type of language here, but teach their own. Again, I understand his frustration as well. When I say somewhat critical thing, figured things would change when he won the belt. I guess not. So, he mentions that. There's also a post on here as well. Someone says, I think if you look back on how you asked the question, it came off odd as you insinuated that Belal won. This guy's wrong too. He says that you insinuated that Belal won because Leon had to deal with the time difference. I don't think that's what he said. I just think he brought up one part of it. Like, to me, you can say a fighter has an off night while also giving praise to the other fighter. Leon could have been on his best performance. The sleep couldn't have even been an issue. We could have seen the best version of Leon Edwards. He still could have lost to Belal. That could also be true, but that's not hating. That's just talking about aspects of a fight. Like, I think people got to relax a little bit about this stuff. I didn't insinuate it. I said straight up, it's my belief. And just because it didn't affect Tom doesn't mean it couldn't affect Leon. Correct. This is my opinion. This is what I've been sharing. Compare how I spoke it. And I've always talked about Belal to how he, what's the rest of this? How he speaks about me in this clip. And then A. Feldman, who does a great job kind of clipping stuff here, shout out to him. On his first show in 3 months, Ariel says Belal has looked incredible while talking to Michael Chandler and asked if he has trained with Shavkat while prepping for his fight against McGregor. So again, like, there's lots of examples of Ariel giving Belal props, but the problem is, and this is understandable, Belal's obviously not watching a lot of Ariel's stuff because he doesn't do a show. They don't like each other. So, and this happens a lot online. When you only see a little snippet of what people are saying, it's easy to, make someone into something that you think they are, but in reality, they aren't. Like, I don't think Ariel Helwani is a hater. Like I said, I think there's things you can criticize Ariel for, certain interviews. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I don't think this is one of them. I think he just said Leon had an off fight, and I don't think that meant that, if he didn't have an off night, that Belal would have won. I think he just said, hey, he looked a little bit off. We've said this with other fighters as well. Where, maybe they haven't looked good in certain fights, and then other fights they look better. I don't think that's, downplaying too much. Now, the other caveat in this thing is, and this ties into Belal's response, in my opinion, is Belal's manager, of course, coming in and mentioning this. And he says, this big-nosed coward has been kicked out of the UFC for being a piece of you-know-what. Good job, Dana White, for getting rid of this cancer, which is just a lie. Ariel's not banned from the UFC. And again, this isn't me, like, I have some sort of bias with Ariel or anything like that. He's not kicked out of the UFC. Like, ask anyone that's close to Ariel. Ask Ariel himself. He can still get UFC credentials. That there was a point when he couldn't get UFC credentials with the whole Brock Lesnar thing when that happened, but his credentials were given back. He just doesn't cover events because he doesn't need to. He can do everything remotely. So again, this is, and then, the first comment here is talking about Ariel's, obviously, he's Jewish. I don't need to go into that. That's a whole other topic, everything that's going on in the Middle East and all that. But this was done on purpose because there's going to be people. That whole Middle East topic is a very sensitive topic. I think we all know that. And again, I'm not a political guy, so I'm not going to go into the details on that. But what he was doing here. He was basically getting those people who, where it's a very touchy subject, to go after Ariel by saying this, by specifically talking about, I've heard some people say that, he says, this big noise coward. You know what he meant? He meant big nose. He didn't mean big noise. Some people are trying to defend him and saying that, because Ariel's too loud. No, that's not what he meant. He meant his appearance. We know that. And to follow that up, he then says, I'm sick of this guy. I blocked him a long time ago, but somebody should tell him, any of his team members, when I see them, they may be slapped. So you're threatening people. I've talked about this before on this channel. Not a good look. You're almost 50. Like, what's going on here? Anyways, this is all come out of something that Ariel just made on the fight. Like, again, let's go back to the beginning of this. All Ariel said was, Leon had an off night. That's it. That's not being a hater. And the thing is, we live in a day and age now where I think there's more haters than ever. I can name you a handful of YouTube content creators who are absolutely haters. There's people whose entire identity online when it comes to making content on YouTube revolves around fighters they don't like. We don't need to mention who they are, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those are haters. Those are people who are obsessive about everything a fighter does, and they do videos on it. And, you know, there's people who join in on that because obviously there's a lot of fans who don't like certain fighters and they sort of join in. Those are haters. This is not being a hater. What's so ironic about this entire situation is Ariel himself was in a situation like this maybe a couple of years ago with the same sort of thing where something was blown out of proportion. Do you guys remember the interview he had with Yuri Prohaska? And in the interview with Yuri, I don't have it handy, but you guys can go look it up. He talks to Yuri. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's basically what he said in this interview. Ariel says to Yuri, does the trash talk that Jamal Hill's been talking bother you? Or it's something along those lines, right? Like talking about the interview there with Yuri. Jamal didn't do that. If you actually go look at the tweets, if you look at the exchange that Jamal and Yuri had, it was kind of like a joking thing. Jamal wasn't talking trash on him. That's what started that whole feud with Jamal and Ariel Helwani, by the way. That was the sort of the catalyst of it, was Ariel blowing something out of proportion. So this is a similar thing, just on the other side. Bilal's calling Ariel a hater for something very critical he said. Ariel, in the situation with Yuri, is bringing up something that Jamal didn't really say. I think they were like more so joking than it was sort of being trash talk. So same sort of thing. Something that was said that is blown up into something that it isn't, and it has created this big thing. It's this exact same sort of thing, right? Where you have someone, and this is something I've been critical, and I didn't think Ariel looked good in that moment. I think he was wrong about that. I think he was wrong about saying that Jamal Hill was talking trash to Yuri when he wasn't. He should have acknowledged that that's not really the case if you kind of look at the exchange. So yeah, I understand there are times when Ariel will bring fighters on and will say things to try and get a good quote or reaction. And I don't necessarily agree with it. I think sometimes he does it and it works out great and you get a good quote. But I think there's other times that it's really a turnoff for fans. So I'm with the fans on that. I just don't think this is an instance of that. Does that make sense? Like from my perspective, I don't think Ariel deserves to be called a hater here. We can find plenty of examples of haters on fighters. I don't think Ariel's one of them. If Ariel's doing show after show talking about Leon Edwards is going to be back and Leon Edwards is, he's going to make his run back to the title, that was just an off night. That's completely different and that's fairly, justified. And the other thing we got to remember too is that Belal just brought this up out of nowhere. I haven't seen the full show, but I don't think Jason just brought up Ariel out of nowhere. So it's like, it only just adds a little bit more that, obviously there's some real dislike there between the two of them. And again, I bring up the manager tweet because I guarantee you the manager is feeding stuff to Belal, all this stuff that's going on, and it's probably exaggerated. And that's why Belal is reacting this way. Like, I know for a fact that his manager obviously doesn't like Ariel. His clients can't go on his show unless they volunteer and go on. But I don't think that's helping either. I think his manager is like putting gasoline on the fire. And listen, I have my own issues with him. But look, like objectively, that's how I look at this thing. It's got nothing to do with my relationship or anything like that, but he's absolutely antagonizing Belal. And as a result, you're getting this. And I don't blame Belal for feeling this way. Like if I was being told that someone was saying all these things, I would have a certain idea of a person like this. So I'm not blaming Belal at all. I just don't think he's right here calling Ariel a hater. So that's basically what it boils down to. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments section below. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to trash Ariel in this video. It's just the way it is. I did a whole fan video on this. There's people that just hate everybody in the media. Like, I get it. And it's funny because I always bring this up. There's people who always hate the media. And then it's like, well, who do you like? It's like, well, I like Nina Drama. It's like, well, Nina Drama is not part of them. Like, she's a content creator. It's different. So listen, like if you're going to hate on Ariel, like I just think, I think there's other things you can be upset with him at. I don't think this is one of them. I think, let's focus on Belal and Shavkat. That should be the main thing we're focused on. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.